Welcome to another episode of the Giants Huddle podcast brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the New York Giants. I'm John Schmeelk. Well, we're to the end of our Giants Huddle journey here leading up to the 2024 NFL Draft. This will be our last Giants Huddle episode before the draft on Thursday night. We've had a lot of episodes over the course of the last 3 months, dating back all the way to the Senior Bowl at the end of January, where our guest, Rhett Lewis, will be joining us shortly, was covering it down there. And we've gone from the end of January through the end of April here, talking a lot of NFL draft with some free agency in between. So if you have some time between now and the draft, after you finish this episode, it's not a super long one, right? Only about 15 minutes for us, but we had some fun kind of talking about what might happen 1 through 6 in the draft. And then maybe what the Giants could do a little bit later too. But go back and just scroll through our episodes. Go to the giants.com/podcast page, the Giants app, click on podcast, and go to the Giants Huddle tab and just click through. If you haven't had a chance to listen to all of them, guys, we've had some really good episodes. You go back, my one with Kurt Warner was one of my favorites. Randy Mueller and Thomas Dimitrioff, a couple of former GMs, they were great. Steven Ruiz on evaluating quarterbacks. Derek Klassen this week on the quarterbacks was a lot of fun. Just go back. Dane Brugler, Brian Broaddus, always two of my favorites every year. They were fantastic. Go back to the combine shows even where we have conversations about these guys. Just Bucky Brooks, Field Yates, Matt Miller, Jordan Reed. Go through it. We've had so many big-time guests on, and we've had so much fun talking to them. Nate Tice was one of my favorites. Nate goes really deep into offensive line, wide receiver, and quarterback. He was a great episode. Just so many really good interviews on the Giants Huddle podcast over the last 3 months. I want to thank all of our guests for joining us. It's really been a blast. I've learned a lot about scouting and evaluation, which is what a lot of these conversations are, as much as they are about the players and what the Giants might do. And I think it's a good way to learn for you guys out there, if you're trying to evaluate players, learn how to do it, to listen to some of these guys that either played in the NFL or a GM in the NFL or a scout in the NFL, a coach in the NFL, teaching you how to go about your business and learn this stuff. So go check out those past episodes of the Giants Huddle podcast presented by Citizens. Just fantastic. I'm very proud of the work that we did on these this year. Pearson Butler did a great job editing them and putting them all together. We've done 5 a week, I think, for 3 or 4 straight weeks now. And it's been a haul. It's been a lot of work, but I think the content's been good. I hope you've enjoyed it. So if you missed any of those episodes over the next couple of days leading up to the draft, they really hold, to be honest with you. None of them are outdated or won't make any sense. The Giants haven't made a ton of trades since the end of free agency. So anything since after free agency ended should be pretty evergreen if you want to go out and check any of those episodes. And while you're at it, if you're not subscribed to the Giants Huddle podcast, go do that on your favorite podcast platform. Just search for Giants Huddle. And make sure you also go check out Draft Season, which is our draft podcast. Tony Pauline and I talk draft. We have 2 episodes this week. Tony Pauline's final mock draft is airing on Wednesday. It's probably already up there. If not, it should be shortly. And then we had Tony's latest buzz and intel on what's going to happen in the draft. We posted that up on late Monday. We record that on Monday, so that's up to date. Then you can go back. You have Tony and I's rankings on offense, rankings on defense, a lot of other good episodes on draft season if you're into the draft. So go check that out as well. As for our draft coverage, we're going to have Giant Huddle episodes, which will be our draft shows live at night. So we're going to have regular Big Blue Kickoff live episodes at 12:30 every day on Thursday, Friday. And then we're going to have our live draft shows when the Giants make their picks in rounds 1, round 2. We'll try to get that all the way to the Giants round 3 pick if we can. And then we're going to have live at 12 o'clock on Saturday too. And those will get posted up on the Giants Huddle feed. So make sure you tune into those. And we'll play your interviews too with the guys the Giants draft if you want to check those out as well over the course of the weekend and early next week. So that's our draft coverage. Again, I thank all of you guys for listening and watching to our stuff. The numbers have shown you've enjoyed them, and I'm happy that you have, because it's a labor of love, and we love what we do, and we're happy able to put out such good content for you folks out there. All right, it's time to get to our interview. And now we welcome in host of the NFL Network's many draft programs, including Path to the Draft. You see him on Total Access. You're going to see him on NFL Network's coverage of the draft from Thursday through Saturday on NFL Network. That is the one and only Rhett Lewis. Rhett, what's going on, man?
John, great to be back here chatting with my Giants fam. Love chopping it up with you guys all the time. And this is my favorite time of year, man. I love the draft. I could talk about it all year long. So I appreciate you guys indulging me a little bit here today.
Yeah, me too. At the same point, we've talked about the same stuff a bajillion times. I'm kind of ready for the picks to start being made. You know what I'm saying?
I hear you on that. Yeah, for sure. I mean, like we've debated, the merits of Jaden Daniels versus Drake May about 1,000 times. Marvin Harrison versus Malik Neighbors versus Roma Dunze. Is that the choice at 6? Yeah, I mean, like I imagine we've had that conversation before.
Yeah, a little bit. Now you obviously do shows with your insiders that are already out there in Detroit. You talk to Jalen Jeremiah a lot, Bucky Brooks. They all have contacts in the league. You have your own contacts in the league. What's your for as much of a degree of certainty as you can have when it comes to the draft? What's your degree of certainty that we're going to see Williams, Daniels, May 1, 2, 3 in that order?
I mean, I feel pretty good about it. I feel pretty dang good about it at this point. Now, I will say that our guys are reporting that, the Commanders pick isn't for sale and that they're not moving, which is something we've kind of known for a while now. And then, the third pick, though, they said that, hey, if the right offer comes along, what does that mean? 3 first-round pick, 3 future ones, a Pro Bowl player. Like, what does Elliott Wolf really consider the right move in New England to move off a number 3 and a potential franchise quarterback for a franchise that needs one? And I don't know, like that part of that, though, makes me wonder when you hear a report like that, okay, do they just like Drake May, who we anticipate to be the choice there at number 3? Do they not love who they might be deciding between there if it goes Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels? Because if they love the player and the importance of a franchise quarterback, I mean, does any franchise know any better than the New England Patriots, who had, the luxury of Tom Brady for 20 years? I don't think you'd even entertain the idea of a trade out if you loved the player that you thought was going to be there at number 3 if it's a quarterback. So part of that gives me a little pause. Like maybe we see some drama there. I guess it's possible that they view Drake May maybe more along the lines of JJ McCarthy and that they're closer to where, like, if they do move down, let's say 3 spots, John, or more, that they'd be okay with JJ McCarthy. But here's the other thing. If you love a quarterback, if you feel like you got to go get that quarterback, you're not going to mess around with moving down. You're just going to stick and pick. So I don't know. I think it's probably a little smoke. It probably goes chalk, like you say there, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I mean, and you wonder too what role ownership has in that pick, right? To your point, you said, you made the point that they know what a winning quarterback looks like for Tom Brady. Sadly for them, they've experienced what not having a winning quarterback like Tom Brady's been like the last 3 years. And I go to imagine Robert Kraft probably does not want that to continue. So while I think there's a good argument for trading down and stockpiling assets, I think we both agree, especially offensively, there are ways away from being a top offense in the league. You want to have a good ecosystem around your quarterback. But at the same time, you don't want to be picking 3 again anytime soon. Then you got to move other assets to move up. So I get the argument. I just can't imagine, Elliott Wolf, Gerard Mayo sitting down with the Crafts and them deciding, let's pass on the guy we think can be a franchise quarterback. It just can't compute for me.
Where else are you going to get one?
Right.
At this point, like, are you going to try and like bank on the unknown of Trey Lance and try to pry him away, from the Cowboys? I mean, like, there's just the franchise quarterbacks aren't growing on trees. And look, I think at this point, and I was talking to some GMs here, who, go through this exercise, this week or last week, they'll bring the area scouts back in and have them talk to them about the 25 class.
Yeah.
Like, let's go over what's coming up here. And I mean, we're looking at Cam Ward from Miami, Quinn Ewers from Texas,
Carson Beck, Georgia.
Yeah. Does that sound like Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May? At this point, to me, no. So, and then again, you got to bank on being really bad again, which you really don't want to sell that point to your owner in the draft room, right? Well, you know what? We're not going to get him here, but we're probably going to stink next year. So we're going to have that opportunity. That doesn't sound like a winning argument in any way, shape, or form. So I think when it comes down to it, you don't mess around. If you have a comfortable evaluation on a player that projects as a future franchise quarterback, even if it doesn't come to fruition in year 1, you got to take it.
You love turf. You're good at it. So you start a turf biz. Business grows, your savings grow. Become the most celebrated name in turf. Are you ready for all that life brings?
The Giants Huddle is brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the New York Giants. From game day to every day, Citizens is made ready for Giant fans with insights, guidance, and solutions. Learn more at citizensbank.com. Now, this is when the fun starts. Most likely scenario, Cardinals move out, Chargers move out, neither team moves out. Order those for me in the order of you think is most likely to least likely.
At this point, I think neither team moves out is most likely. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. I think the idea that the Cardinals are going to, play the draft board like a piano, like they did last year and just, move up and down. I think that's easier said than done. Like, I mean, credit to Monty Austin for it. I mean, he worked it brilliantly last year, right? Especially if Paris Johnson ends up being, a 5-time Pro Bowler at left tackle for him or right tackle. So I think you don't overthink a talent like Marvin Harrison. You just don't.
I agree.
Especially in a world where players at the skill position can come with an ego, and sometimes that's okay. Like, you like a guy to have some edge, but like this dude, like his dad is sitting there telling him to complain for the ball more, like, because he's just he is a team guy through and through. Plus, he's an incredible athlete, and he is the type of guy who won't moan about certain things. He is confident enough in himself and his ability where he can go out there, do what, exercise his God-given talents. He is an extremely hard worker by all accounts from people at Ohio State. I just don't think you mess around with that. So Cardinals at 4 take Marvin Harrison. And then at number 5, I would say the second most likely scenario is the Chargers trade out of 5 and they move down. I would say that's probably still for an offensive lineman. And you just got to wonder again, where are their grades? How close are their grades on Joe Alt, on J.C. Latham, who might be a real interesting one there, a natural right tackle to plug next to,
Fuaga
on the opposite side. Yep. Fuaga for sure. And then Fashanu, I think, is in that mix at some point as well. But do you view him as a right tackle or, that kind of thing? So I think they're in a pretty good spot to move down. Whereas, like if you're the Cardinals, you move down to 9, what if all 3 receivers are gone? You move down to 8. What if all 3, you move down to 11. What if all 3 receivers are gone?
Right.
That's a risk too.
Yeah. And look, and I think that's 2 scenarios. I think the simple scenario where the Chargers move down, and we're both assuming that means the Vikings or the Broncos come up and they draft JJ McCarthy.
I don't think they're coming up I don't think anybody's coming up for McCarthy.
Really?
I just don't see it. I don't see you mortgaging future ones, multiple, to move up 8 spots to get the 4th quarterback. It doesn't ring value to me. And that's not a knock on McCarthy. Like, I think in a different system, maybe we would have seen more from McCarthy that would have him more in the line of the conversation with, Caleb and Jaden and Drake. But as of right now, like my buddy Daniel Jeremiah, I feel like he's more on par with Nix and Penix than the top 3.
Yeah, I kind of have him in the middle. My personal evaluation, I think right now on my board, I have McCarthy between 18th and 20th, something like that. And then I have Penix and Nix.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
Like 30 to 33, I think, somewhere in that range. And there's a gap there. So my personal evaluation, I happen to agree with you. All right. So that puts the Giants in an interesting scenario. Pick one of the wide receivers. That's easy, right? The question then, if McCarthy's sitting there and you got one of the wide receivers, then what the calculation is. Could you then move back if one of those teams then says, all right, we don't have to give quite as much up to move up to 6? What's their evaluation on McCarthy, right? That's really the bottom line here. If you think he's special, then I think you understandably pull the trigger. If you don't think he's special, then is it worth passing on a potential special player at another premium position? How would you view that entire decision-making process? Because I think if he's sitting there and one of the top wide receivers are sitting there, you could pick either one, or you can then try to leverage that pick to move down.
Okay, so let's acknowledge a couple of things. One, this is a what have you done for me lately league, right? And what Daniel Jones has done for the Giants lately, it's not what you would expect from a player with that contract. Now, given the guy got injured, right?
And it was a small sample size last year. It was a matter of 5 games at the start of the year.
6 games, yeah.
And a lot of injuries, no Andrew Thomas, no Saquon Barkley, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you for making that point, because I feel like that has gotten lost in the mix. And let's not forget that we're basically a calendar year, a little more than a calendar year removed from the guy winning a playoff game for you.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, could 4 or 5 games really just completely change the minds of Joe Shane and Brian Dable? It seems unlikely to me, just from a logical perspective. You know what I mean?
And then let's come back to the guiding light of this organization. John Mara, who came out and said, we have done everything possible to screw this kid up. So I would then sit there and ask in the draft room, have we done everything possible to support him? And look, they know better than us. And if that question is yes, then you pull the trigger on McCarthy if you've got a franchise quarterback type grade on him. If not, you build around him. You take the receiver, the number one receiver, the likes of which he hasn't had yet, and you go on and let's try to be explosive on offense again. That's kind of the calculus for me.
You're ready for a change. Payday comes early with Citizens, so go to that retreat. New you moves to the country. Now you're raising goats and launching a lifestyle brand. Are you ready for all that life brings?
Giants fans love a winner. It's why they love Citizens, named a 2022 Best Bank in the U.S. by The Banker. As the official bank of the Giants and sponsor of the Giants Huddle, Citizens is made ready for fans of Big Blue. Learn more at citizensbank.com. Yeah, I'm with you. And I think, let's say theoretically you do put McCarthy into this ecosystem, right? You're looking at an offensive line where you hope it's better with your offseason moves, but you don't know. I mean, they thought it was going to be better last year too, and that didn't work out too well.
Right.
And then you don't have your weapon at 6. You lost Saquon Barkley, your best weapon from last year. You bring in Devin Singletary, who's solid, but he's not a guy teams game plan against.
Yeah.
Darren Waller's still in limbo. Who knows what's going to happen with him? And they have 2 young wide receivers in Hyatt and Wanda Robinson, who they like but haven't proven anything. And Darius Slayton's been a solid, 50, 60 catch, 800-yard guy. Can McCarthy succeed in that situation?
Well, I mean, if you go based on his collegiate career, you need a more dominant run game. You need a more supportive system at that point. And look, we've seen Brian Daboll's offenses be very, and Mike Kafka and the whole, they know how to run the football when it's going, but are we there yet? Right. With this version here, let's run through this scenario as well, because I don't think I've seen this really mocked yet.
Yeah.
So the idea that they pass on the receiver at 6, what if they get out? What if they get out of 6 and somebody comes up to 6? What if they go down to, let's say it's 10 or 11 and they've still got the 3rd or 4th. All right. The receivers are gone. Fine. What if the tackle comes into play at, let's say, 9, 10, or 11.
Or how about Bowers, by the way? I'll throw Bowers in there too.
Sure. Throw Bowers into the mix. Absolutely. That's definitely something you could consider. But what if you say, you have you go get the right tackle and J.C. Latham, he's still there. Maybe you move Evan Neal around a little bit. If you feel like you can move him in and feel good about him at guard, you got Andrew Thomas out at left. You've now really upgraded the offensive line. I think the value's better in the 2nd round for a wide receiver than it is for an offensive tackle.
Absolutely.
So, and you're sitting there at 46, right? In the 47 in the 2nd round. So I think you're in a great spot to get a Ricky Pearsall, maybe a Troy Franklin. You could be looking at a Roman Wilson, a Malachi Corley, where, maybe they don't scream number 1 wide receiver. But because you've upgraded the offensive line, you have a better chance for that guy to find some success. And just another one to play out, right?
No, look, I think it's interesting because you can build this in a lot of different ways, right?
Or just take the tackle at 6. What if you take the best tackle in the draft at 6? I mean, and then you come back, or the best offensive line, whatever you want to call it, you come back at 47, and you get your wide out. I don't know. Food for thought.
No, it absolutely is, and that's why the draft's a lot of fun. All right, before you say goodbye, rapid fire, right? Give me one surprise that you think's going to happen. It could be any time in the draft, or just give me your pet player you love, or both.
Okay, so a surprise that we could see happen. I think the Broncos don't take a quarterback at 12 or in the top 12.
I could see them trade down from there, by the way.
Yeah.
Knicks in the 20s.
Yep. I think look out if Brock Bowers is there at 12. I think the Broncos moving off of 12 without a quarterback. I don't know if that's a surprise or not, but I think that's one of the intriguing pieces to follow. The Vikings not moving out of 11 and not going up, but getting their quarterback at 11. Maybe the guy that we've had pegged to them all along in J.J. McCarthy, I think would be probably a surprise to many, but I don't know if it's that far-fetched based on the evaluations. And then let's say I think there are more cornerbacks selected in the 1st round than wide receivers.
Ooh, I do like that one. Do you have a pet player you like in this draft just because you liked watching him? He was
Lad McConkey.
fun.
Lad McConkey. It's just if he's there in 47, it's an absolute home run for the Giants. I don't think he gets past 35, 36. If I'm the Carolina Panthers and I'm picking there at the top of the second, I'm 100% loading that one up. If he's still there, I think he could end up going in the first.
I think the AFC better pray he doesn't wind up in Kansas City
That's
with
right.
Patrick Mahomes, because
That's
that
right.
could be a big, big problem. All right, I mentioned what NFL Network's doing for the draft, right? What are you going to be doing for the draft? Where can people find you?
Yep. I'll be on the NFL channel, which is on our free ad-supported television app. If you're on your Samsung TV or whatever smart TV, and like you just load up, you search the NFL channel. We are there for free on an alternate broadcast of the draft. And we're also on the NFL's YouTube channel during the draft as well, Thursday and Friday. And then I'm on the main desk. Well, not the main desk, the second desk on NFL Network on Saturday.
Who'll be with you on the alternate on Thursday, Friday?
Bucky Brooks and Lance Zierlein.
Oh, wow. All right. So if you want to dig deep
Heavy
into
hitters.
these guys, that's
Heavy
the
hitters.
one to go to.
Yep, that's the one, buddy. We'll be there. So youtube.com/NFL, I believe, or NFL channel. But you could definitely find it. It's and for free. So
awesome. Rhett, this is always fun catching up with you, brother. I hope you had a good a lot of fun covering the draft. We're finally here. We appreciate the time, and good luck this week.
Thanks, John. Always a pleasure.
That's Rhett Lewis from the NFL Network. Does a great job. Really just a super dude. Really good host. Also does a good job breaking down prospects. If you have more time with him, I would have went through more of the guys that he liked, but he kind of got to some of the guys early that he's a big fan of. And I know he, former college player, by the way, folks, if you didn't know that. Went to Indiana, does Indiana play-by-play on the radio. So really good dude. Love talking to Rhett every year. I'm happy we had a chance to do it before the draft. I thought we were going to run out of time, and I'm happy we were able to squeeze that in. It was a last-second thing. We kind of got this set up this morning for a record Wednesday afternoon, so Rhett was kind enough to do it quickly, and my buddy Andrew Howard over at NFL Network that helped set all this stuff up. He's helped us out with, Bucky Brooks, Daniel Jeremiah at the Combine, Charles Davis, all the guys that we've had from NFL Network that have really brought good information to the show. So thank you to him. Thank you to Rhett for joining us on the Giants Huddle podcast. Don't forget to go subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. And you can find all of our podcast offerings at giants.com/podcast or on the Giants mobile app. Just click on that podcast link. Thanks for being with us, everybody. And for our entire season of draft coverage right here on the Giants Huddle podcast. Enjoy the draft, everybody. Here we go.